Hi guys. All right, so we're gonna see if this works to do questions, and then we'll proceed with that. If it's on Instagram, what is it, IGTV, then we'll know it worked. I don't know if I can upload this to IGTV, but I'm gonna try if we can. So I'm just gonna go through like all the questions. If you guys have questions, leave them there. We'll see if we like doing it this method. So hi everybody joining. All right, I'm just gonna start with, let's see if we can pull up some of the questions and start with those. I'm gonna try to answer them quick. I know I'm bad at that. See if we can get through them. Okay. Best way to take report, and did you develop your own form? So taking report is not the hard part. Giving report is the harder part. I am going to do eventually a video, probably somewhat soon, on how to give report, but really just going through kind of like having whatever system you have. That's going to be the important part, that you have a system you always do and it covers everything, and then not getting flustered when other people interrupt you, because sometimes other nurses like want to know something in the middle, and you can kind of just be like, I'm going to get there. Don't be afraid to just say like, I'm going to get there. Chill. Just chill. It's totally fine to say. Excuse Piper. She's not wanting to go to bed. Good night, Piper. I'm a new grad. How long should I stay at my job if I'm interested in another opportunity? Totally depends on what you're contractually obligated to do. So when I was a new grad, I had to stay at my job per contract for 1.5 years. But if you are not obligated to stay at your job for 1.5 years and you want to peace out, by all means, peace out. I mean, I wouldn't do that more than once. I think once you can kind of explain to a new employer that, hey, I'm leaving this job. I really feel like my strengths are more over here. But if you keep hopping like every 6 months, that is going to look bad, and you don't want that. All right, let's see. Hi, everybody that joined from Puerto Rico. Wow, that's exotic. I hope you have, that just sounds fun. Justoda Machine. I'm interning at a physical therapy clinic. Do you think it would be beneficial for nursing school? I think some aspects of it would be beneficial. Like, you're going to learn how to ambulate patients really well, not necessarily in school, but I think you'll see that more if you become a bedside nurse. That's going to be super helpful. It's a pretty common joke amongst nurses. I don't know if it's a joke, but there's kind of a thing amongst nurses where we tend to rag on physical therapists. They're wonderful people. I love physical therapists, but they get your patient up to this chair, or they get them out of bed and then they abandon them there, and you're supposed to get them back. So you're going to be great at that, and you'll be highly utilized at getting them back into bed, because you're going to know how to do it and no one else is. Your patient won't be stuck in a chair, because that happens all the time. Let's see. Did you ever want to be a physician? So I did originally. That was my original plan. I wanted to be a pediatrician. That's what I was in college for. I was pre-med, and then you had to shadow, in my school's pre-med program, you had to shadow a resident. And when I shadowed that resident, she was having a very bad day. She had a total meltdown, and was like, this is the worst choice in the entire world, yada, 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 yada. I was very like, I couldn't see the big picture and see that like this chick's probably having a real bad day and like is working a crazy amount. But I also wasn't super committed to, like, I was starting to think like, I don't know if I want to dedicate, like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. And this is a like really big life commitment if I don't want to do it. If I had known, so I did, and then I changed my mind, and then I went the nursing path because I wanted to be a nurse. I didn't want to be an NP at that point. I didn't want to be a provider. I'll be honest, if I knew going in that like I was going to love primary care and I wanted to do family medicine, I probably would have just gone to medical school to be a family physician. But I didn't know that, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do what I did. So I'm glad I went the path I did. But if I knew, if I had a magic ball and it was like, hey, you're going to want to be a family practice provider, I probably would have gone that route. But then it's hard to say that too, because I loved my nursing experiences and it got me to where I was. So yes, no, somewhat all over. Kiwi80, how long did you work as an NBP before you felt somewhat confident? 6 months. I feel like at the 6 month mark was the first time I had a day that I came home and I was like, or the first time I went into a patient's room and I was like, like I kind of know what I'm doing. But really at the year mark was when I started to feel it more and more, and now it kind of went away because I had a baby and I wasn't there forever, and bummer. Runner girl HUV, any pharmacology tips? I have a whole video on pharmacology tips, how I studied, all of that. If you just search my name and pharmacology on YouTube, it should show up. Bethesda says, thank you for the interview. I got the job. Yay, that's exciting. I love when you guys tell me you got the jobs. If I had anything to do with that, it just makes my day. 'Cause sometimes on the internet, you feel like you're like doing these things and you never see, it's kind of like in the hospital where you like put stuff out there and you never see the results. So that's always super sweet. So thanks to everyone, whoever tells me that, like, or anything just positive. It's just super nice. Jazzy life, since you were a peds nurse, was adult health daunting during NP school? No, because I was an adult med surg nurse for a year and a half before that. So I felt very comfortable in both. I was actually super happy. I have a video about what kind of nurse is kind of helpful to become an FNP. And I talked about this in there a little bit, that I actually was really glad I had so much peds experience, because FNP programs do not stress pediatrics at all, like very, very little, even though you're expected to care for them. So I was very glad that I had my adult experience, because I was very comfortable with adults, and my FNP, or most FNP programs, really emphasize adults. But then I had my pediatric experience to kind of fill in that gap where school didn't really do anything. Could you hear Piper upstairs? Poor Joe. All Piper wants to do in the evenings is just eat, like the whole time. She's been eating all day. I'm like, I just need a break. I need a break, baby. Did Savannah Culver, did you do a new grad residency program? I get this question all the time. I did not. I applied to a bunch of them. I didn't get into any of them. Thoughts on them, or if you want to, go for it. From what I've heard, they give you kind of a cool cluster of people, but you might meet those people. You might meet people on your unit anyway. The classes are usually kind of useless, from what I've heard, at least from what people have told me. So if your experience has been that, wonderful. Or been the opposite of that, wonderful. But I would not say, don't be afraid to not do one. Many people do not do one, and it's totally fine. Exercise. I love that name. I'm a freshman in nursing school, and how do you deal with feeling so inadequate in nursing school? Reminding yourself that you're not supposed to know everything. If you already knew everything, then why would you be in school? So it's totally fine to not know everything. And really, you're not going to feel confident until you get to your job, because nursing school does a really bad job about clinical. Nursing school prepares you for the NCLEX. It does not prepare you to be like out on the floor providing care, which is a huge, huge issue with nursing school. I feel like clinical in nursing school does not provide you with enough continuity to make you successful. It also puts a lot of the burden of training you on nurses who are also very stressed and maybe new themselves and overwhelmed. So nursing school clinical does not set you up well to feel prepared for your role. So if you feel unprepared, it's not your fault. You will be fine. Your job will prepare you. Don't feel sad. School is not good at that. End rant. Mary F. Wright, did you ever want to be a labor and delivery nurse? No. I don't have the temperament for that. I wouldn't do well with women who, I have a high pain tolerance. I will admit that. I also suck things up pretty well. And so I wouldn't do well with women who are really whiny about being like, oh my gosh, this hurts. I'd be like, yeah, what did you think this would be like? And that's not what you want in your labor and delivery nurse. And I recognize that. And while I think it would be very rewarding and a beautiful thing, people don't need that attitude in their life. They deserve someone who's like, you got this, you're doing great. And I'm not that in labor and delivery. I'd be like, what did you expect? And that's mean. What are your thoughts on getting into becoming a psychiatric NP? We need so many more of them, so many more psych NPs, but do not go into it for the money. It is very well paid. That is the new thing. We need a lot more of them, but that is a very, 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 that is a field that you really need to be passionate about, because it's not fair to those patients if you're going into it for the money. That is not fair to them. This is going to be a population you're going to be working with a lot of bipolar, schizophrenic, patients who are very, really need you to be on their side and understanding and care about that. And if you are just doing it for the money, that is a bad thing. But if you are doing it because you love that patient population, thank you. Come move here. There are none in my area. No psychiatrists in my area, and it's stressful. How are you answering questions in the comments or in the box? Both. I'm trying to get to both. Can you start in the ER as a new RN? Yes, I have had many friends that started in the ER. It gives you a really good kind of overview of everything, and then a launching pad to kind of decide, oh, I really like this. I'll go into, maybe if you want to go to a specific floor, I'll go into this, or, oh, wow, I hate that. And you'll know exactly what not to go into, because there you go. Do you think there's an age range where nursing school might not be a good idea? So I, again, have a whole video on this, and I'm not saying this to be like, why didn't you watch this? I'm just saying in case you want to watch the expanded version. A whole video on Am I Too Old to Go to Nursing School is, I think, the title. This is totally up to you, and there's a point, I think, in your life where nursing school is going to take a few years, and then you have to look at how long do you want to work. And if it's not going to be worth it to you, then don't do it. If you are, 5 years away from retiring, is that worth it to you? It might be worth it to you. You might be like, this is my life goal. Like, I have always wanted to do this. That's perfect. Go for it. Do it. But if you're like, oh yeah, like I kind of want to do it, but I also want to retire in 5 years, is that worth it? I don't know. You have to decide that. Can you guys hear Piper? Oh, I feel so bad. Will they be taking the master's degree level NP school? I said that really awkwardly. So they keep saying they will. I think it's going to be around for a while though. So they've been saying, back when I was in nursing school, many, many years ago, they said, oh, the NP is only going to be the DNP. Here we are. I obviously have my master's. They keep pushing it back, making new goals. This is a lot, I think, like you can be an ADN nurse. They've been trying for how long to phase out the ADN, and it's just not working because it's reduced, it's just not feasible, really. Like, what's the point is kind of the thing. Like, if this is working, why change it? I don't know. You know how I feel about the DNP, but so no, I think there's still going to be MSN programs for quite a while. I just realized in my last rotation on a med-surg floor that I do not want to work with adults. Do you recommend peds since you're a peds RN? What was your experience? Was being a NP ever a thought? I love kids. Obviously, if you want to work with children, go for it. You don't have to go straight into med-surg. Med-surg gives you a great basis as a new grad. It kind of, you learn some really interesting skills on med-surg. I have stories to last a lifetime from working on med-surg. I didn't like it, but I learned a lot of like leadership skills. I was in charge way before I should have been. The patients were like insane. That is a really tough environment. You learn a lot of things, but if you don't want to jump right into that, that's fine. We had new grads on my peds floor too. They just know they won't ever have those stories. And so it's kind of like I don't know, you won't have that, but it'll be fine. If you want to go right into that and and you get a job. I did adults because I couldn't get a job on a peds floor right away. So that's why I did that. And I never wanted to be a PNP because, again, I lack a lot of a filter, and working on on a peds floor, you got to be very interactive with the children. I like working with the children. I do not like working with parents, especially when I find them incompetent. And incompetent, I don't mean like, oh, you're not doing this and I think you should. Like gross negligence, abuse, any of that, like abuse stuff, I can't handle. And so that would just not be a good environment for me, because working in primary care peds is a lot of interaction with the parent. Yes, you're interacting with the child. Yes, but there is a lot of parental education. Also, I would not have the patience, to be totally honest, to deal with all the parents who bring their kids in for like a cough, and you'd be like, how long have they been coughing? And they'd be like a day, or they coughed twice. And I'd be like, and again, same thing with the labor and delivery problem. I just don't have the disposition or the patience to like maintain facial composure and be like, hey, on here, Ashley, the NP, I think, is that her handle? She's a pediatric NP, and her stories, I'm like, this is why I couldn't do this. Like, you have the patience of a saint. I couldn't do that. My facial expressions would get me fired. So that's why. All right. How long did you wait from when you were an RN to an NP? So I was an RN. I worked as a nurse for 3 years. And then I went to NP school and I worked full-time for 2 of those years. So I worked 5 years full-time, and then 1 part-time before I graduated and was an NP. And I think that was a really good, that experience was invaluable. I highly, highly recommend getting some decent nursing experience before going back for your NP. Sorry, I'm just searching for a question that I haven't answered yet. Any advice about balancing picking up shifts and being a good team player and saying no? I very rarely picked up shifts, and that is something that I would honestly recommend, which I know is seen as being not a good team player. You will burn out so fast. Nursing is hard, and it's good to have. It's very rewarding, but it's very hard, and you need to have in the back of your mind the knowledge of I'm going to get through these 312s, which are kind of physically and mentally exhausting, and then I'm going to have time off. And if you don't respect that, you never can really relax in your time off because you're always thinking ooh, am I going to get called in for my overtime? Or ooh, should I pick up the phone? Should I be available for work all the time? You need to be able to switch off. And for me, I needed to be able, I just never picked up the phone if they called for overtime. The only time I ever stayed for overtime was when I was at work and they mandated me, and I cried every single time in the break room or the med room or wherever, whenever I got mandated. I think respecting your time off. And if you want to pick up, I don't know, I never picked up because that just was not good for my mental health. I do not recommend it. If you want to do it, perfect. Awesome. You can make a lot of money, but I think you need some sanity, and that really creeps in there. So I would, every now and then, maybe once a year, pick up for my best friend. When she was really in a bind, I was like, all right. And then she knew how much I loved her, but really only to her. What made you realize you wanted to be an FNP versus other routes? I was working on a med surg floor, and I was seeing a ton of patients coming in with conditions and in sad states that they just had no idea, but about their diabetes, they just didn't understand. They thought that they only would have diabetes and their blood sugar would be high if they ate sugar, from actual sugar. There was just a huge lack of primary care education that I noticed, and I was like, oh, I actually want to do that. So that's going to be of another video at some point, because there were just several patients that stuck with me forever that were like, oh my gosh, no one explained this to you. Simple things, what is cholesterol? Oh, why did I have a heart attack? Oh, here you go, friend. No one ever told you what this was. Blood sugar, blood pressure, kidneys. Oh, I need those. I shouldn't, basic things that people were not getting. And I was like, I feel like I need to explain that to humans. So that's what I went and did. And I tried to do is educate humans who don't want to listen to me. Sometimes it's frustrating, and other ones do, and it's wonderful and great. Any tips on taking anatomy and physiology? I'm struggling so hard. I feel like I won't make it through the NP or the nursing program. I have a video on anatomy. Physiology was kind of with it. I have some generic videos on how to study. I would apply that to physiology, but I do have a specific one for anatomy, and it has what I did and then what I would do, because I went to school in the Stone Ages and we didn't have a lot of this technology because our phones didn't even really have internet. It's a fun time. So now there are things called apps. Those didn't exist when I went to nursing school. I'm old. Do you know anything about being an OR nurse? No. But Alyssa all day does. Go follow her. I talk about her all the time because we're internet friends. We've never met in real life, but one day we will, and it will be beautiful. She's an OR nurse. She knows. My mom was an OR nurse. I did a YouTube video with my mom a long time ago, and she talked about being an OR nurse. It's called a nursing interview with her mom or something. But she was an OR nurse for a really long time. I like people. I like talking, obviously. So the OR would not be the place for me because I would either drive the nurses I worked with crazy or, so I like conscious people. As a new grad, did you ever have student nurses shadow you for their clinical before you felt ready? Yes, before you felt ready. So my very first day ever on my own off of orientation was a day shift, because I was coming off of orientation. I had one day shift and then I was moving to nights, and I had a nursing student. And I went up to that teacher and I was like, I can't have a student. I am brand new. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm about to poop myself. And she was like, oh no, you're fine. Like, you know more than this person. So like, you can at least teach her what you know there. And I was like, oh my gosh. Ended up being fine. We like looked everything up together all day. It was like we were two little lost ducklings, but hey, it was fine. And from that, I kind of learned like you can always teach someone something, even if you don't feel like you know anything. And you can always learn something from someone, which is a really good kind of attitude to send me into the nursing world, because I think not everyone has that attitude that you can learn something from everyone. And that's a good attitude to have. Highly encourage it. I am currently in Seb's book says I'm studying for my registration exam. Any peds tips, conditions you recommend studying? Oh, I don't know. I just went by whatever the study book says, do that. They're smarter than me. Currently in my first semester of nursing school and I feel defeated already. Can you give me a pep talk, pushing through it? Nursing school is brutal. You're going to feel burnt out. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means it's like super brutal. Just take it one day at a time, and one day you'll graduate and you'll be like, oh, I'm done. That's great. You'll be okay. It's rough, and it's totally normal to feel burnt out in school. Yeah. Also, don't look too far ahead. Sometimes it's nice to be surprised by like your catastrophic week that you're about to have until you're there and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be rough. And then it's over, but you weren't dreading it. How often were you or your colleagues mandated? So at my first job, we were not mandated very often. There was like a lot that went into that. And this kind of varies based on units. That job was much more, I would say, hardcore. Like, we would all take another patient. They would pull like the educator to work the floor. Sometimes we had a manager, and then we had a supervisor, and sometimes they would pull the supervisor to work the floor. You didn't want the manager to work the floor. People would die. But they would pull like everyone they could before they mandated. Second floor I worked on, which was my peds floor, they really liked cushy staffing, which is just a unit culture thing. And they mandated much more often, ironically only on day shift. So the night shift people got mandated all the time, but the day shift people never had to stay for nights because nights could suck it up. So just ragging on my day shift people. I'm a night shift human, so I have an attitude about day shift people. Also why I can't work in the daytime, because I have an attitude. The diabetes NP. Everyone also, she says, that's so true. There's missed opportunities with education. Excellent diabetes resource. She's a nurse practitioner and knows like all the things about diabetes. So she has a YouTube channel and an Instagram. So go follow her. She's an awesome resource that I just discovered. Alyssa, Andrea, do you ever miss inpatient? I feel like I would get bored in an outpatient setting. I miss it sometimes. I miss the immediacy of being able to like fix someone or go in and like make something like immediately better. But I really like the outpatient setting. I like family medicine because you see everything. Because if you think about it, like you see acute care stuff. So people coming in with like every complaint under the sun, and then you're getting constantly like new patients and new things. So it seems like it would be a lot of the same, but it's kind of not. I have a video where I talk about that a little bit. I think it's called like, do I regret, like, which do I like better, NP or RN, something like that. It's in a NP playlist. Where is Joe's YouTube channel? Right? So I've suggested it. I told him, and then he was like all on board, but it hasn't happened yet. So you can all go over to his Instagram and pressure him. I think, convinced him to do, I'm going to try to do like modified Vlogmas. It's probably not going to be every day. It's probably just going to be like as I can, but I've convinced him to do a vlogging day in Vlogmas. So I'm excited for that one. And did Roxy Bloom, did you get any certifications before becoming an NP? For example, I work with a lot of older adults, so I may get certified dementia practitioner. Oh, that's cool. No. If I was going to stay at the bedside, I would have. But I knew by the time I went to peds and then discovered I really liked it, that I was going to be leaving and going the FNP route. There was a lot of pressure at my hospital to get the certification exams for if I was to become like a pediatric nurse. There's an exam for that. I should probably know the name. I forget it. I, like we've mentioned, have an attitude problem at times. And I did not get it because I was like, I don't want to study for that on top of studying for school when I'm not going to use that long term. So I did not. You should. It's a great thing to go and become certified in your area and learn all the things. Don't be like me. Have a better attitude. I did not. It turned out fine, but I mean, I should have. Because I worked for a really long time as a peds nurse, and I probably just should have sucked it up and done the exam, but I didn't. I have Emma. Thanks for being your time. Oh, thanks, friend. Tiffany, I've been an ER nurse for 2 years, and I think I hate being a nurse. Switch your unit. Seriously. Like, if you hate your unit, just switch. Because I thought I hated being a nurse. I just hated med surge. Went to peds, and I was like, oh, okay. This is a lot better. And there's so many things to do. Non-bedside. There are so many different avenues of nursing that I would just play around with it and see what you like better. Care coordination, hospice, palliative care, like you could do like legal consulting. If you get that, you can take some classes and become like something like that. There are so many options that you can choose. I would, before you decide like, do I hate being a nurse? I would decide like, do I hate being this type of nurse? Because that can happen. Late night snack, sweet or salty. I was always a sweet person, and then I had babies, and now I just want salt, like all the time. I could eat potato chips all day. It would be fine. Let's see. Is being an NP worth the student loan debt, and what's the best part? So if you are I didn't take out loans. Because I had Joe, who was working full time, and we just like kind of lived below, like bought a cheaper house than we can, buy, and like all of that, so that I could go back to school if I wanted. And we just kind of planned it that way, that we could live on one income, which if you're kind of thinking about school is kind of a good idea, because then you could pay for school out of pocket. My job also paid for half of it, so that was huge. But is it worth the student loan debt? If that's what you really want to do, yeah. If you're going back to school to be an NP, I'll try not to go on a tangent on this, to make just because you hate being a nurse at the bedside, and you want to make more money, then no, because it's a stressful job. There's a lot. It's like a hard, mentally stressful job. There are other jobs that you could go into that I think would be better if you just want to make more money and escape the bedside. So if that's you, then no, your student debt would not be worth it. But if you're like, this is literally this is legit what I want to do, then it'll always be worth it, because it's what you want to do, if that makes sense. And the best part is when people come back and are like better, or like improving, like their A1C finally dropped, or they're like, no one's ever explained it to me like that, and they come back and things are better. That is very rewarding. Do you think getting your ADN first is good or bad idea? Will hospitals not hire you? I have a whole video talking about this. It depends on where you live. Where I lived in Michigan, they were not super into hiring ADNs in the hospital. Where I live here, I honestly don't know. But where I went to school, they were very into the hospital that graduated ADNs. So it is totally up to where you live. If that makes sense for you. It's obviously a much more affordable option. But hey, yeah, it all depends on where you live. Do you think a route for entry-level master's is worth it? Or should I go with an associate's, would eventually need more schooling? If your goal is an NP, I would personally, I'm just a huge fan. This is what my video on Tuesday was about, getting some nursing experience. I think that's super duper important. So that would be my recommendation, but you do you. Not everyone agrees with me. Do you recommend shadowing during NP school to determine what types of things you like? My clinic only has 3 programs, family med, internal med, and peds, and I feel like I want to see more. Sometimes they'll let you do a specialty rotation, like mine let you do 40 hours of a specialty rotation if you wanted to. But I mean, you could if you wanted to, by all means. If you like think you want to do something else, shadowing is going to be the best way to do it. V Manzo, thanks. She complimented my hair. Night shift and day shift peeps are so different. They are. Kelsey Goodwin, how soon after graduating and taking the NCLEX did you start applying for jobs? I took the NCLEX, oh my gosh, like maybe 5 or 6 weeks after graduating. It was as soon as they released what do they release? Your ATI? What is it? I don't know, whatever your ticket to test. As soon as they released that, I scheduled the very first one that was in a 3-hour radius, like that I could find at a testing site. Tips on Akosua, I'm going to butcher your names and I'm sorry. Uwasua, tips on writing your personal statements. I have a whole video on that. If you write how to write entrance, like a application essay, maybe something, it's in NP school or nursing school playlists on my YouTube channel. I like walk you through exactly how I write mine and kind of refer it to like going on a date, because that's really what it is. You're trying to go on a date. Did you do KBRN 2019? Did you do a licensure prep course? My school recommends Berkeley and Associates. For nursing school, I did not. I just did some book. That was it. I like read through it in like a day and I was like, all right, I'll be fine. Don't recommend that method. I mean, I think it's harder now because there's the internet and like this was not a thing when I went to school because again, I'm older. But there was no stress there wasn't as much stress and like hype about it because I feel like Instagram, you see everyone, like everyone's going to know if I pass or fail or like you can see what everyone's doing. That didn't really exist. Like Facebook was like a thing, but it was just a different time. And for NP school, I took the Fitzgerald review. If I could do it again, I would have done the Hollier review, the APEA. I've heard good things about Berkeley, but I don't know anything. Like I haven't seen any of the info on that. Laura and Danielle, would a 12-month ABSN or a 24-month be better? I already have debt from my BS and I'm weighing down the differences between more drowning in debt and more school. That's totally up to you. I did a halfway point. I did an 18-month and I thought that was kind of the sweet spot. I couldn't imagine it going any faster. But I know people that have graduated from the 12-month ones and they're fine. So there you go. Whatever works for you, you'll get through it. All right. I'm going to do like 1 or 2 more and then probably go just so it's not super long in case people want to rewatch this. And then I'll try to get to some more of your questions like throughout the week. And then let me know if you like this method or if it's the worst. I'm going to try to save it to my IGTV that I forgot I had. And we'll see how that goes. Did your hospital have a pay difference between night and day shift when you work as a peds RN, and how much was the difference? It was not a lot. It was not a lot per hour. I want to say it was like 50 cents, but we did get bonuses. If you were on and if you worked in night shifts, you got bonuses, which I think came out to about $2,000 a year. So you made like 2,000-ish, maybe a little bit more, like 2,500-ish more by the time you factored in the whole 50 cents or whatever it was. Difference. Some hospitals pay you like a ton more. So it totally just depends on where you work. For me, I only wanted to work night shift because, as we talked about, I don't have a day shift attitude. Do you think the FNP route is okay if you want to do women's health? Currently an L&D nurse. I have a video on this where I kind of talked about because I get asked a lot if you want to go into peds or women's health, should you do family because it's, you can technically do all of it. I think if you want to do women's health, go do women's health. Go to a women's health program or go to a CNM program. They're going to give you so much more education. My FNP program and a lot of other ones, you have like 40 dedicated hours. Sometimes it's like even less. Sometimes they incorporate them into your family practice ones. I actually went to a OBGYN's office for 40 hours. that is not enough, in my opinion, to then like successfully go out. You're just gonna be so much more prepared if all of your clinical hours are about women's health. You know what I mean? And you want to be the best provider you can be. Not that you can't learn those skills at your job, but wouldn't it be nice if all your education supported your goal? At least that's my opinion, but you do you. You do you. Someone's shift differential is like $5. Okay, that's pretty sweet. Am I from Michigan? I lived there for 6 years, but I am not from there. I'm from California, but I haven't lived there in a very, very long time. All right, I'm going to answer one more question from the little boxy thingies, and then we'll say goodbye. Will I save this live? Yes, I will certainly try to. We'll see how that goes. Oh, this is a fun one. Avery seems to like quesadillas. How do you make them? Butter, tortilla, cheese, tortilla. Cook for a minute, flip. Done. Voila. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap things up here. I'm going to go. Piper has finally stopped crying, so yikes. Hopefully Joe survived. Thanks for coming to my live. If you have any other questions, I'll try to get to the rest of the box ones throughout the week. Let me know if you like doing it this method or if we should try something else. Just let me know. We'll play around with it and see. But thanks for coming. Hope you have a fabulous night. Yeah,